So, hi everyone. So today is Wednesday, November 20th, and it's about gonna be 6:30 in the evening. I wanted to do these videos earlier for the assignment that's due this Friday, but I've been trying to grade your modules and then finish up the extra credit assignments that I'm going to post on Canvas because I'm going to post one of the extra credit assignments today and then get back to evaluating your modules. So this is just going to evaluate the two assignments that are due this week. And I know this is easier for me to say because I'm on this side of the screen. Because what I'm going to have you do is that for this assignment and the other assignment is that I'm going to have you evaluate the writing that you did for the peer-reviewed article, right, which I just finished over the weekend for all the classes. Right. So like this is just having you look at effective how you effectively support your claims or how do you assess claims. Okay. So I'm going to read it and then sort of explain my rationale for this specific assignment. Okay. So establishing a claim may seem premature, but it is necessary because it will direct the direction you take in your research. For example, when I began working on my book Barrioology, A Spatial History of Panorama City, a claim I initially had, but has changed as I went deeper into the relevant literature and relating it to my observations and photos I took, altered my claim and the core question I created for my work. My claim is that people who use social space in their daily activities, right? So it's sort of like for those of you who read my chapter that I've been editing, is sort of trying to establish this thing that I call a spatial ethnography. And one of the components of a spatial ethnography is really paying close attention to the space or the milieu or the location that that interaction is taking place. It could be as small as two people having a conversation, and it could be as large as a protest or a war, right? So the way that I've conceptualized the spatiality in society could be like macro or micro. Okay. So, but that's not the purpose of what I'm having you do this exercise, sort of like explaining what my rationale was for writing my book or doing my book on the community that I lived in. Okay, but all right, getting back to this. So my guiding question is, oh, sorry, daily activity. The claim made me focus on what people do in the barrio or the neighborhood. I tested this claim against the observations I made as well. It helped me to refine my core question. My guiding question is how is behavior spatially oriented and how was knowledge spatially situated? So that's just basically asking is how do people organize their lives in the community that they live in, but then how do those ideas of how you're supposed to live like in the hood or the barrio and what the are the decisions that people need to make in order to live, survive, and hopefully thrive in the barrio or in the hood. All right. So like that was sort of what I was thinking about when I created this or developed this question. Okay. Now I'm going to continue with the module. Following this method helped me to write roughly 200 pages. I'm not expecting you to write this much, but I do hope that you learn how to use claims not only to support your writing, but also how to use it to help guide you through your research. Booth and et al. In 2016 state, you need a tentative answer to your research question to focus your search for evidence that will test and support its answer. Right. So that's sort of what I mentioned earlier, that I've used the idea of spatiality and behaviors related to spatiality and how we come to think about, or what I call the ideological spatial understanding. Right. So then that's sort of what Booth is explaining, and I was just providing you an example with that I used in the research that I've done. Okay. And again, this is just the initial step. So the more practice you use claims, not only to try to write an argument for your research, but also use the claim itself to help you look for sources that will help you complete and successfully accomplish a cohesive research paper for any class that you take at Dominguez Hills. Okay. All right. Now, getting back to this, Booth et al. Mean that when you write, you have to have a clear purpose to answer a specific question because the claim could also help you find relevant sources to answer your research question qualitatively or hypothesis quantitatively. Now, for this module, I would like you to use the 4 points from Booth et al., which I converted to questions to evaluate a claim you make in your peer editing exercise. And that's the paper that I mentioned that I just finished grading all of them over this past weekend. And I want you to locate your claim or a claim and use the points below to assess how clear and significant your claim is for the peer editing essay. So I expect you to write about 2 to 3 detailed paragraphs, but be sure you have the claim and support your claim when needed. The pages listed indicate where I took inspiration from the questions below. So what I'm asking you to do is go to Booth and go to page 124 and then 125 and the IBD. And I did a little footnote with this asterisk, and this is what I mean by the IBD. Sorry, IBID. The IBID is shorthand to indicate that the quote comes from the same page as the previous quote used in the text. So whenever you see this IBID, always refer to the last page number that's in the text, and and then you will find this on the same page. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. All right. So then, so then, what you wrote, and you could also incorporate my comments that I made for you, because as I mentioned before, but more specifically to the face-to-face classes, is that my one of my recurrent comments was, how do you convince your reader to accept your claim or your thesis? And the way that you do that is by providing empirical evidence, all right, like effectively supporting your claims with empirical evidence in your writing. But for this one right now, I'm just having you look at, is your claim specific? Meaning, is like, are you specifically explaining the process in which how you evaluated the assignment that I had you do? And then the second point, once you go to page 125, is your claim using precise language. So are you using very specific wording to try to get your idea across? Or are you being very vague, like saying, like something like, for example, someone could say, the reader showed that they're really interested in the topic, right? Okay, that's a general description, but that's too vague. That's not precise. So you would have to say something more specific and saying something like, well, the author the author wrote for this particular argument how critical they're taking this approach about social exploitation, right? Because for their worldview, they believe that social exploitation is a bad thing, and they're very adamant about the critique of this whatever social injustice that they might be referring to. So like there's a difference between very vague broad language, and I'm trying to get some of you away from that because it does not help your case, right? But then trying to become more precise in terms of how you use language to describe and explain something. Okay. So like that's the rationale for that. And then the third point, again on page 125, is your claim explicitly logical? Meaning, are you logically consistent from when you start writing your essay, and you're maintaining the logical coherence, or that you're maintaining um uh that you're staying close to your argument that you started at the beginning of the paper? All right, so like that's sort of what I'm asking you. For some, I have seen that when a student made a claim in the introduction of the peer editing exercise, they were able to carry that throughout the paper, which is really good. But then I've also seen some other papers where a claim is made at the beginning and then it gets lost somewhere in the paper. All right. And then others don't make a claim at all. Right. So then This exercise is really having you to focus and pay attention to how you construct your claims based on the type of research or work writing that you're doing at that particular moment. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. But again, if it doesn't, let me know because I'll be checking my emails as I'm catching up on grading the modules. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video here and then I'm going to go to the next module.